I'm here.
Cody.
I
was worried there. I was like, oh man, I already went live. I did my whole spiel. I might have to restart this.
I probably should have read the email on how to access the stream, but it worked out. I sent a question within your actual opening remarks. It worked. We're here.
It was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Timely as ever. So yeah, again, thank you for joining us. The nice thing about the quarantine is people tend to be a little more flexible when it comes to us making mistakes. So we're good.
I'll take that.
But how have you been? What have you been up to during this weird time in the world?
It's such a kind of unique challenge as a content creator in this time in the world. I think I've really kind of honed in on the individuals who edit and package and our post-production teams, guys like Kevin Sullivan and Jim Morris and Dylan and Steve, just because, you know, not being able to have everyone together presents a challenge, yet you still want to rise to that challenge. And it's a unique time for sure, but I think AEW more than anybody, with the Dynamite we had last night, with the TNT Championship tournament, I'm really proud of the crew involved with these shows.
Absolutely. So where are you now? Are you at home in your office?
I wish I was at home in my office. I am at the gym that I partner with QT Marshall at, which thankfully, you know, prior to quarantine, I was able to have access to a facility like this, because I think for the crew of wrestlers, the brotherhood and sisterhood of wrestlers, we're either going to come back from this period of quarantine in the best shape possible, or everyone's going to be fat and pale, and that you guys are going to have to give us a little bit of a grace period. But I'm trying to be the former. We're trying to stay in the best possible shape. There's so many home workouts you're seeing from different wrestlers, so a lot of them really good advice. I'm doing everything I can.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, it doesn't sound like you're limited when it comes to what you're able to do in terms of working out at you know, wherever you are right now.
Yeah.
We were speaking to former UFC champion Demetrius Johnson. He said he doesn't have a home gym. He's had to basically just run and go old school, do as many push-ups as he can. So it's good to know that you're not limited in that sense.
I think old school is pretty cool, though. Like Danny Hodge, the legendary Danny Hodge wrestler, I'm pretty sure all he ever did was road work, was run and do push-ups, and that guy had double tendon strength and was an absolute legend and monster in his own time. So maybe we learned something from this, that old school still gets the job done, kind of like Rocky, you know, when he defeats the entire Soviet Union in Rocky IV, essentially with just old school hard work.
While we're on this subject, I know one fan question that came in was, how did you bulk up? I remember a series of videos, promotional videos that AEW was doing, where they were focusing on you, you know, working up to a certain weight. How did you, you know, bulk up essentially for particular matches?
Meal prep has become something this generation has gotten pretty good at. You see all these online services for meal delivery and eating actual quality ingredients like real chicken and real ground beef. I've been fortunate that I found a really great nutritionist who cooks all my meals and puts them all in the fridge and marks them, and I'm able to kind of go, you gotta feed and you gotta eat. Abs, for example, is 70% diet. If you ever had them or ever hope to have them, it's one of those things that I just take it very seriously. One aspect of pro wrestling people forget is the pro sports aspect of it. This is a very I don't know the word for it. You're very exposed. You're out there in the smallest of outfits. And not only are you just flexing, but you're performing maneuvers at a high level. You're running at a high rate of speed. And this is broadcast worldwide. So getting in the best shape, to me, has always been super important as a wrestler, which is strange because Dusty, my dad, was more robust and was drinking like crazy and more of the common man physique, and my brother's more of a Gumby style physique. I don't know. I just honed real in on fitness and working out, and I think it's because of some of the early partners I had in pro wrestling, guys like Bob Holly, who taught me how to work out correctly, stuff that my dad and brother maybe didn't ever get the chance to do, you know?
Absolutely. You mentioned Dusty. This comment from a fan says, "I don't have a question for Cody. Just let him know Dusty would be proud of him." So hope that brightens up your day.
It always does. I think about my dad every day, and this world we're in, I think about how he would react to the wrestling world, what's happened in it, but then the bigger picture of what's happened with the pandemic and coronavirus, and how he would, handle it. Because he was always really, almost folksy in his wisdom and his ways, and there was an accuracy in what he was saying. But I try to be the best I can in terms of honoring his legacy. Very unique individual, and I'm so glad I get to hang out with so many of his friends, guys like Tony Schiavone and DDP. It's surreal.
Moving on to the current product at AEW, there's currently a tournament going on, TNT Championship Tournament. Obviously, you have already moved on to the semifinals after defeating Shawn Spears, and you'll meet either Sammy Guevara or Darby Allin in the semifinals. Last night, we saw Lance Archer defeat Colt Cabana. What are your impressions of Lance Archer? Because he's been on a tear since he joined AEW.
Sometimes you just don't like people, and you kind of want to discredit them, and it's always good to be self-aware, especially in wrestling, when you just don't like someone. Lance Archer's just someone I don't like. Like, I even took a veiled shot at him in my interview about his run with the New Japan US title, a title I also held. So in burying him for a moment, I was legit burying myself. I don't like Lance Archer. I think it's hype. But being self-aware, like I said, when you see what happens with somebody as good as Colt Cabana, and you see the last 2 weeks alone of what Lance Archer looks like today in AEW, I mean, right up near the top. The guy is every tool in the toolkit. Size, he has a huge size advantage when it comes to AEW. Certain wrestlers hit their prime early. Certain wrestlers hit their prime later in the game. And he's one of those that's kind of heating up and just entering his prime. My favorite wrestlers were always the types that you followed along. And then all of a sudden everybody was like, yeah, I love Eddie Guerrero. Well, I've been watching Eddie Guerrero for 15 years. Where have you been, But Lance is somebody I don't particularly like, but I can't discredit further. If I get a little mouthy, it's definitely just being that. He has a huge hurdle in front of him in terms of whoever wins between Dustin and Kip. Just the right side of the bracket is really unique. Kip, a very different type of wrestler, and he has the added element of Penelope. And then Dustin being someone who matches size to some degree with Lance. I don't know if he matches strength, but he certainly has more experience. Dustin, I said before, I do think Dustin's the best guy in the tournament. I dread the thought that we would ever cross paths again, which is a very, very strong possibility. But we'll see how they do. And then on my side of the bracket, I've wrestled both Sammy and Darby, and Arn really particularly wants us to wrestle Sammy and to knock Sammy off the board. He has his game plan when it comes to Sammy. Darby's great. I love Darby, but I think he thinks I'll have more trouble with Darby. I'm going to have trouble with nobody.
Arn thinks you're going to have more trouble with Darby?
I think Darby is concerned that I think Arn is concerned that if Darby beats Sammy, I've had two really tight encounters with Darby, whether it was the draw or whether it was the New Year's show we did, the homecoming show for AEW. Counter wrestlers like Darby, my whole life is probably a big weakness for me is counter wrestlers, and he has my number in some regards. But we'll be ready for both guys. This is full time for somebody like me and Arn, and I'm not a weekend warrior, man. Whenever we know, we'll be ready for whomever it is.
So I'm a little confused as to what your beef with Lance Archer is. I mean, obviously we've seen it transpire over the past couple weeks, but are there some deep lying issues there that we haven't talked about? You mentioned Japan. Was there something that happened there?
No, there really wasn't. Maybe it's because he's I'm a former Texan, and maybe it's because he's a Texan and there's just a natural kind of city by city, Texas rivalry that has always existed. That's why college sports and high school sports are so competitive. Here's another deep dive, psychological, me examining myself as to perhaps why I don't like him. I was somebody who was undervalued and underappreciated, and now I'm not undervalued and underappreciated. And I feel like I got to the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm harder on those same guys because a lot of times when you're called underrated, you're not. You're just not doing the work, or you're missing a piece of your game. So I'm harder on guys who really come from my own boat. And perhaps for him, I don't want to admit yet that he's really been undervalued. But I'm admitting to you fully now. We're live. He has certainly been undervalued up to this point, and he's heated up to the right degree now. He's right near the top at AEW as far as a real true super heavyweight. For a guy I dislike, I've got nothing but good things to say about what he does in the ring, actually.
So this is BR Live. This is the home of AEW pay-per-views stateside. And we got some recent news about Double or Nothing, saying that the show will go on despite the circumstances going on in the world. Yeah. Any updates regarding that? I know there's perhaps a change in venue. Anything to add to that?
Well, we're excited that the show goes on, that the Double or Nothing and the weekly episodic continues, that we're not having to put a pause on our content. It's disappointing that we have to postpone Double or Nothing in the MGM Grand, but as you saw, you can hold on to your ticket for a year, and we have our makeup date. We're not just putting postpone next to our show dates. There's a makeup for almost everyone that we've had to postpone. We'll honor those tickets, or you'll be able to get a refund. It's incredibly unique and arduous, this area to navigate, but I love the thought that the show has been challenged, has been pressed for how will you continue. Just like so many great shows you saw on Saturday Night Live, they do I think it was a big Zoom conference that they had with all the great comedians. Entertainment is a really valued service to people, and I'm not trying to mean that in any selfish way. Most of us who have engaged in quarantine and social distancing, we've watched Tiger King. We've watched stuff on TV. We've had to discuss it. I don't try to get high and mighty about what I do for a living, but I know it's really valuable in terms of keeping people feeling good during a period where, man, everything seems to be so negative and very real virus that's going around. I'm just glad that our show is able to go on safely, responsibly, in a closed set, which is unique for wrestlers and changes how you approach wrestling. But I'm proud the show moves forward. And the guys and girls, I think this is a time where the guys and the girls on our roster who have been able to step into some positions, there's a bit of a replacements vibe that's gone on with we don't have access to our full roster. Some people of New York City or LA they're not able to travel, and we wish them not to travel. We want to abide by those guidelines. There's this replacements element with some guys and girls who have stepped up, and I really like to focus and hone in on the positives of those people. It's just, there's really special, unique situations. You saw AEW, we signed a young girl who only had 6 matches under her belt, Anna Jay. There was another signing that came from the most recent set of Dynamites that we did. It's a challenging time, but you're meeting the challenge. You're up. You're on BR Live.
Exactly. This is a studio. This is the room in my house. So
that's all right. It's your studio now, though, man.
You're not wrong about that. So you mentioned Tiger King. Did you watch the whole thing?
Oh, I did. I did watch the whole thing, and I had this very loose kind of connection to Tiger King, very loose, as far as I went to a sanctuary that was in Melrose, Florida, a really great tiger sanctuary called Single Vision. And they took tigers that situations like Joe Exotic, or situations like there's a bit of an epidemic in the country with people who get these big cats and then they don't know what to do with them, like you saw on the show. So they would go to places like Joe or Carol, whomever, however you weigh in on it, they would go places like that. And he would be a sanctuary for certain cats. But I'm trying not to implicate anyone, I had heard the Carol Baskin story like 5 years ago. And it was just a universally known thing, like amongst that world, amongst the tiger world, that like, hey, don't mess with her. This is what she did. Now, I'm not saying I believe it, but I was told as if it was absolute fact. So when it was brought up on the show, my mind was blown. And now I've heard this from multiple people in the animal world, and now it's for everyone. Everyone is seeing it. I really enjoyed Tiger King. A very crazy outlook on a unique situation, but it ended like most documentaries end, in terms of we endear ourselves to some of these people sometimes, and then we find out, that guy actually sucks. You know what? He's not a good guy. He's funny, but he's not a good guy. Maybe he deserved what he got. But I did enjoy the Tiger King for sure.
Oh, Cody, you made yourself a part witness. Oh my goodness.
It wasn't anyone who was on the show.
I know.
Brandy was told as well, like, hey, because here was why we were told this. We were debating, do we go to Big Cat Sanctuary or do we go to our other place? And the individual was like, well, you don't want to go to the former because, and that's where we heard it for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the biggest piece of evidence we've seen so far.
Oh, no.
No. My.
Well, Brandy loves animals, and I wanted her to see a tiger and a lion, and she saw a tiger, a lion, a giant tortoise, all kinds of craziness. So I was very happy. Brandy likes animals more than she likes people.
That's so good. All right. So are you ready to roll into a few fan questions?
Sure.
All right. Let's do it. Do you sometimes forget you have a neck tattoo?
Do I forget?
Yeah.
I don't forget. I think, yeah, I guess like I was in a Quick Trip gas station the other day, and there was just a kid, at the register over, who was just staring at the right side of me. And sometimes I think like, oh, you get like that condescending, like, oh, they know I'm a wrestler. No, he didn't know I was a wrestler. He was just fixated very much on the Nightmare Family logo. So no, I'm getting used to that. Other people see it. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to miss. Right. So I'm getting used to that.
Okay. I know you're a huge Star Wars guy. What Star Wars character would you pick as a tag team partner?
As a tag team partner, it's weird. You don't want to, like, if you're going, there's kind of two options. Because if you go business, you're going to want to pick a Jedi for a tag team partner. This is an obscure partner in the Star Wars canon, but most Star Wars people will get this. Savage Opress, which is Darth Maul's brother. Okay. Savage. I would pick Savage because I always felt like I functioned a little bit like Darth Maul, and Dustin functioned like Savage. Plus, he's a little taller, just like Dustin's a little taller. So it would just feel like Dustin. So that would be from a business standpoint, because Savage can get it done. Trained by the Night Sisters and Dooku and Maul. If it was from a personal, there's so many great characters. Personal, man. Oh, you know what? I'm not using any of the main movie ones. I'd say Thrawn, maybe? No. We'll just go Luke. Let's go, Luke. We'll go, Luke. We'll go, Luke, because I watch the movies for Luke. I think some dudes are Han Solo dudes. It's just in their makeup, and other dudes are Luke Skywalker dudes, and I'm a Luke Skywalker dude.
Well, the second question related to Star Wars: who would win a battle royal of Star Wars characters? No Force use allowed.
No Force use?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, probably. You could say it. You could go as far as saying our modern day, protagonist in The Mandalorian. So it would definitely be one of the Mandalorians for sure. What was the girl on Rebels that spray painted everything? Sabine? I think Sabine. Sabine it could potentially be up there. And then the Death Watch leader was a really good hand-to-hand guy, and I can't come up with the Death Watch guy's name, but I'd give it to a Mandalorian for sure.
What is the most nervous?
Pre Vizsla. His name was Pre Vizsla.
There you go.
Pre Vizsla wins the battle royal. No Force use.
What's the most nervous you felt before a match?
Probably before October 2nd, before the first TV. I was in the little Cody Vader, the little elevator that brings me up. And I typically am very rambunctious and funny and try to kind of talk my fear out loud and braggadocious. But I didn't really have a lot to say, and it was moving so quickly. And my wife asked me, what do you think? Just as like the tunnel was lifting. And I really wish I had some like eloquent and beautiful thing to look back at her and say, but I had nothing to say. I couldn't think of anything. I was so excited to basically break that horizon that is the stage and to see out into all the people and to hope that you're always hoping, well, hope I get a big pop, hope the show gets a big pop, hope you're wanting to feel and connect with them. And it's one of my favorite things to kind of rewatch, and you can have a lot of accolades in wrestling and you'll always want more, but sometimes you have to put it in perspective and say, hey, I can watch this night, October 2nd, the night that Dynamite debuted on television, and I can be proud that I was even in that spot. Very first match, the first entrance, very lucky man to be in that spot, very proud, and that was most nervous for sure.
Was the elevator your idea? Did you want to rise up when you were coming up?
Maybe it was my idea. I love Pomp and Circumstance. I love a big entrance. I actually would also credit Red River Pete, Keith Mitchell, legendary executive producer, who originally, when we were talking about Double or Nothing, the chandelier lifting and then showing the throne, and then that music that Mikey Ruckus put together to go with Downstate's music. It kind of was a combination of 2 or 3 different entrances together. But as much as I love filming and doing shows live in Jacksonville, it does hurt a little that the Cody Vader cannot. There are certain stages that it does not function with. But yeah, that's I'd actually give the credit to Keith Mitchell on that.
People in the comments thought you were making another Star Wars reference. They thought you were saying Cody Vader, but it's Cody Vader.
Yeah, Cody Vader, like the Cody Vader, like the elevator. Technically, you can't be a Vader. You can't be a Vader if you get Sith, love. You can be a Darth. You can be a Darth, and I don't know exactly how it works. I have the Disney Book of Sith, but there's a few inconsistencies with the current. Don't read the books so hard and don't get married to any of the novelizations or the books, because the movies are going to take you a different way, and the movies and the animated series lead the canon way. I'm huge pro Star Wars and pro Disney Star Wars. So people have come after it. I have very little time. I love all Star Wars. I've never disliked a Star Wars movie, not once.
I'll be honest, out of all of the topics that we talked about today, I didn't think that Star Wars was going to be the one that brought the most emotion out of you.
I could talk about Star Wars till I'm blue in the face. And the reason is I talk about wrestling at this point, the way, not to feel no sympathy for anything for me, but the crew that's putting Dynamite together is working about 18 to 19 hours a day, it seems like. And a lot of this is remote. Almost all of it's remote on ideas and concepts and data and this and that. That's really cool stuff. That was part of the job. That is fun to talk about for 19 hours a day. It's also fun for, 30 minutes to an hour to talk about Star Wars a little bit. So it's very much a big part of my world. I don't know. I love it. So many other people love it. You can't, Star Wars rules the world.
No, I'm glad that, hey, in a time like this where the world is kind of on its head a little bit, it's nice to get away from everything and just talk about your favorite stuff. So I'm glad that this is a source of happiness to you right now. What is the strangest fan interaction you've ever had?
Strangest fan interaction? Oof. There was a thing that guys and girls used to do at signings where they would ask for a kiss on the cheek and then they would turn and you'd end up kissing them on the lips. It was a pretty regular thing for a while in wrestling. Now you're going to see like signings and meet and greets are so much more organized. But that was something that I always thought was beyond bizarre. The sneak of the kiss. I mean, it was full flattering and fun, but I saw it set off a few people from time to time. I don't really have many strange fan interactions. Almost all of them are 99.9% are positive. And the reason being is TV is a lie in this weird way. One day you're not famous and the next day you're on TV and suddenly you're declared famous or a celebrity. So the thought that anybody wants to say hello or take a picture or get a signature, that is by far so silly and amazing. I can never turn it down. You can ask any of the eBay collectors. The eBay collectors who hit the airports that are kind of universally disliked in wrestling, I'll sign whatever you put in front of me. I don't care. The fact that you want this, that's kind of cool in its own right. And when they're not at the airport, that means the show's going to suck. So
that's an interesting perspective. It seems like they are universally hated by most athletes, but
yeah.
Okay.
I don't like when they're like, hey man, how was your flight? And they try to make dude, I'll sign your 30 cards and we never have to talk. We never, because I know what you're doing with these. You know what I'm saying? Right. And also if you get angry at an eBay collector and there's an 8-year-old kid there who's not, you end up in a situation where you've got a real fan and a real connection and you don't want to carry that equity over. And I learned that from Kane, from Glenn Jacobs. That dude, unbreakable. Just the ultimate perfect model locker room leader of how you should handle fandom, fame, and I really admired how he did it.
Cody, I appreciate you taking the time. That half hour flew by.
Oh, hell yeah.
Did not seem like half an hour, but thank you again, Cody. For all the fans watching right now, Double or Nothing, tentatively May 23rd on BR Live. Cody, again, appreciate you taking the time and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Enjoy the tournament. Enjoy Dynamite. Enjoy Double or Nothing.
And that's right. AEW TNT tournament on TNT. Be sure to watch. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.